Hello, this is Real World Audio, and today it's time for a little audio philosophy going into measurements and reproduction of sound and music. And I'd like to start with a quote from Albert Einstein, as he was a quite phenomenal musician and himself thinking a lot about the reproduction of music and sound. And he lived at the era when sound reproduction was in its infancy. So this is the quote from Einstein. It would be possible to describe everything scientifically, but it would make no sense. It would be without meaning, as if you described a Beethoven symphony as a variation of wave pressure. So these were his thoughts on the matter, and I really agree with him because sound and music is something that is extremely complex. We always try to imagine that sound is like visual information, but it's very, very different. When you think about visual information, there is a huge agreement between individuals on what we see. And when we see a photograph or a TV picture, there is a much greater level of concordance on what we think as improvement or not. With audio, there is a much greater level of subjectivity of which one prefers to another person. And it's because we have very different sensitivity to the sound. And it's not because of our ears. Our ears are virtually identical, or hearing system from one individual to the next is almost identical, but those brain parts, those pathways and brain circuits that process the information can be vastly different from individual to individual. And a lot of it is because of learning. So forget the myth that you need to be born with great hearing. You can develop it tremendously if you work on it. That old knowledge that we learned in school 20, 30 years ago, that your brain is unable to repair itself, unable to develop once you reach adulthood, it's not true. Brain has tremendous ability to heal itself, to repair and develop, even as an adult or as an old man. If you want to look into this matter, for example, one of my colleagues, Dr. Frederic Mercier, he is an example who worked and works on studying brain regeneration. You can look up his papers on the matter if you are so inclined. But coming back to audio, we have a very difficult path in front of us if we want to correlate measurements with sound. And it has several pitfalls. One of them is that we do not measure every quality or every aspect in a stereo system that is responsible for creating accurate sound. So it's like you have a patient who goes to the doctor, and the doctor only measures height, weight, blood pressure, and body temperature. And the patient's condition might be related to any of these parameters, or might be completely unrelated. There might be something completely different going on. And if you are not measuring additional parameters, you won't be figuring out what's wrong with the patient. And the same situation is true for audio. We are measuring certain parameters, but we are not measuring additional key parameters. And today we already know about many parameters which are vital for accurate sound reproduction, but it's not in practice yet to measure those for audio equipment. So this is why it's really hard to use the measurements for anything predictive or anything to describe accuracy in sound reproduction. Another part of the mystery, or I would say the challenge, is that we are not yet able to record sound accurately, and we are not able to reproduce that recording accurately. So we have difficulties in both of these procedures. Of course, during the past 100 years, there has been a steady development. We know more and more aspects about both sound recording and sound reproduction, but there is still a path to go. Just remember, at the time when Edison invented the phonograph, people believed that there were real people talking, and that's because people at that time were not used to hearing recorded sound, and they took it for granted that a phonograph can project lifelike sound. Today, when we have the best technology, we call that, oh, that sounds like life, but really that happens on maybe a few recordings that you put on at times when the power line is just right, when the humidity in your room and temperature is just optimal for your stereo, and next day when you play the same song on the same equipment, it will not sound as good as it sounded last night, and that's normal, and that's because there are lots of parameters we don't know about that influence sound. And of course there's a lot that we know, but our equipment is unable to control everything. And so these are just a few thoughts on audio and sound reproduction, and just the words of Albert Einstein. I want to make them as a beacon for everyone, every audiophile, especially those of you who want to get into building audio, or even like making your companies, is that to describe things scientifically, it's absolutely imperative, but it should not be your goal. It is a tool. So thank you for tuning in. This was Real World Audio. Please like, subscribe, tell your friends. Bye bye.